So hello and welcome to episode 6 now of the GPVWC review show. I'm Michael Pittman and I have with me for the next 30 minutes or so Mr. James Kirk and Lewis McGlade, and we're going to be looking to review round 15 of the career ladder, the Indy race in the USA. We're obviously going to look through like we normally do. Let's stick with tradition. We're going to go with the Super League, the Super Cup and the Formula Challenge, the three series that we have here as part of the career ladder. So let's start off with our top series, guys. The Super Leagues, this is where we do the full race distance, and it's getting to be a quite interesting season. We've only got 3 races left to go now. This time though we did have another winner, the same winner again, Jim Paresis coming home first. There's a bit more to go with that, but nonetheless coming first, with his teammate Peter Kasser in second, becoming a bit of the same as we had in Germany. Ruud Hesterbrink coming third, and Morris coming fourth, Reggio fifth, Cooper in sixth, Van der Voort in 7th, and Lucas Euler, our championship leader, down in 8th place. So guys, did we have a good watch of the race? I know it wasn't broadcast as live as normal, but I'm sure we've all reviewed back and watched it live in bits and pieces. So, any thoughts?
Euler must have had the worst start in GPVWC history. I mean, he spun on the. I can't remember whether there was actually contact with somewhere else, but
he seemed to spin it off the line, and in doing so went into one of the Norwegians. Actually, I couldn't remember who it was.
I'm pretty sure this is becoming a common trend between Cooper and Euler, because you saw Cooper doing pretty much exactly the same thing at the Nürburgring. I don't know what they've been on the rear tyres of their cars or whatnot, but
it was very odd. He ended up dead last. I mean, he was still sitting on the line while everyone else has been turned 2, I think. So yeah, he had to come back to 8th in a way is quite a decent comeback, but it kind of was his own fault.
Yeah, it wasn't a good start at all, but you know, with Heath finishing a bit higher up, that says some good things for the championship, with Heath to be closing in that gap on the leader. But for a championship leader, for the world champion last year in the Super League, it wasn't a great showing really for Euler, especially, you know, it's a start. I mean, they've done enough of them. You've done practice starts and things like that. So to have messed it up, and you know, not like a minor, I've missed a gear. It was quite spectacular, and you know, to have messed it up that bad, it's quite impressive, if I'm honest.
It's quite amazing to think it happens the race straight after it happened to his teammate Alex. You'd think, right, that happened to him, I'm not making that happen to myself. You know, would that thought cross your mind, do you think? Or practice it more?
I mean, now my starts are genuinely terrible. But
we know you're not up to
it's always something that you
Lewis.
think about when you're making the setup for the car. The start of the race is so very important. And you know, getting that start right, especially for these Super League boys who are practicing or should be practicing quite a lot. And the start is one of the things you practice. You don't just practice lap after lap after lap. The start is another thing you can practice, and you have to practice it so you get it just right. And it showed that he really didn't, or if he did, he really messed it up.
What I'm worried about with Midnight is whether they're trying to overcomplicate things, because for a good chunk of the season they've had the strongest car. There's been flashes of you got the Nijo that had that brilliant run. The Hawkeye is actually the most developed car out of everyone on the field. But most currently you got the Torrent with a good string of victories now. I can't help feeling that Midnight are trying to do too much to try and catch up, and are sort of hurting their own chances in the same thing, because we talk about first gear and practicing starts. For most people, they will not change their first gear throughout the entire season. That was certainly the case for me in Formula Challenge, because you want as consistent starts as you get, so you can do the less and less practice for certain starts. Of course, you'll change if it's going to be wet weather and something, because you want longer gears. But something tells me that I don't know, they're trying to do so much to get back up to the front that it's actually starting to harm their progress more than anything.
I suppose you could look at it that way. I mean, ultimately, they're probably not actually really fighting the Torrents. It's not, unfortunately, Torrents being a new team this year didn't have they had an okay start, but it wasn't championship-worthy start. So they were coming into it now, but they're not really fighting the Midnights for anything. Lucas and they need to be looking at the Nijos and Rude.
No, but
really.
That's the thing. To beat the Nijos, they need to be on the pace with the Torrents, though. And there's where you get your conundrum of whether you just stay conservative and bring home points and just see how the car goes.
Well, yeah, but we were looking at
you push
last
as far
time,
as you
weren't we?
can.
Sorry, we were looking at last round, and you think Lucas came home third, which you think that's fine. If he comes home third every race behind the two Torrents, he's going to win the championship. That's all he technically needs to do. He doesn't actually need to fight the Torrents.
But I mean, you look at. Oh, I think it was he. Yeah, you look at how subdued the Nijos were last round. It's almost like a role reversal. They keep on flipping and changing. Sometimes they're up there, sometimes kind of not. And it's a worry to have that fluctuation in form, because what if you have a really off day, and that's the day when you need to score the most to secure a championship?
Well, true. I mean, but you look at it and go, well, maybe we're overcomplicating this, because actually, this is, apart from the retirement in Malaysia, this is the first time Ola's finished off the podium. So, I mean, actually, he's not doing a bad job, is he? Let's be honest, he's still top of the standings. Everyone has a bad day at the office. And this must just have been it.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our off days, and around a track like Indianapolis was certainly mine. But we all do have our off days, and to have a record that states other than a DNF has finished on the podium in every single race except this one, that's really impressive. That's something that shows that he is worthy of the championship and that he has this, supreme skill. But I mean, it's still ringing a few bells that this happened. That it was a kind of simplistic mistake with just a start, something that drivers have done many times this year. I mean, this was round 15? Yeah, it was round 15. So they've done this 14 times before. Obviously, with maybe with a couple of mistakes here and there, but they've done it 14 times before this year. And God knows how many times, like in practice. So it's such a simplistic mistake that's cost Euler a lot of positions and a lot of points.
Do you realise how that affected the championship, I suppose? It's what all matters at the end of the day. So we still have got Euler leading there with 281 points, with Ruud Histerbrick in second, but has caught up a little bit. So he's on 262. So we're now within a potential, do not finish situation where you could overtake. Peter Casas still stays just ahead of Jim Paresis on 188, with his teammate on 187 now, just behind him. So that's an interesting battle, which did go on in the race as well. And then Alex Cooper now overtakes the left Dave Carr-Smith, and he's on 156. It's actually top 5. Wanted to go back and have a look at the Torrent, really. You think actually most of the race, Peter Casas was the lead Torrent. It was his race. It should have been his win, really. I mean, I say should have been. He obviously didn't, and they did fight for it. But it was how to say, it was a bit of a just to take it on effectively the last lap. No team orders there, is there?
I guess you could kind of look back to the Multi-21 incident from Formula 1 in Malaysia this year to try and draw comparisons. I don't know whether there were team orders involved. Everyone probably wanted Carson to win because Carson would be a new winner, and he deservedly got pole position and led that race for almost its entirety. But I'm going to quote Sebastian Vettel here and say, in the sense of Paresis, he was faster, he was better, and he won. And to be brutally honest, if Carson deserved to win that race, then he would have beaten Paresis to the line, but he didn't. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation to manage, I think.
I don't think you can look at it from a team point of view, because ultimately Cass is higher in the standings than him, only just. But that should be your driver if you're looking to try and move him up the standings a bit. But maybe they're just purely looking at the constructors, and 1-2 for them doesn't really matter either way.
by this point, they're probably just going to be focusing on the Nijo, I'd say. The Nijo team in front of them.
Yeah, they're only really racing each other in the championship, to be honest. I mean, there's Cooper behind, but with the recent pace, it's not too much for the drivers to be worrying about. I don't think it's even possible really for them to catch Rude anymore. I don't think they can get up into second. So really, they're two drivers fighting each other, and it didn't look like there was team orders or anything like that. And on the day, although it looked like for 99% of the race that Castle was better, when it came down to it, Paris has had the edge. And to have not really led any of that race up until that final lap, it happens to some drivers. They can't do it. Even if it was the first win of the season or whatever, it doesn't matter. Paris was faster on the day, and Paris took the win, and that's the only way you can really look at it.
I mean, he took a great advantage, really, of that of lapping the Woods car, and taking the slipstreams from there. So it was very opportunistic. I wouldn't know if Casa really would have seen it coming necessarily, apart from when he was just along the whole home straight. It's one of those things with Indy which we'll see down the whole career ladder. That slipstream on that straight changed an awful lot of positions, a lot of results this weekend or this week.
Oh, there's no denying it's devastating, but when we look into the lower formula as well, it's quite clear to see where people have made mistakes in their gearing as well, because there's a very fine line between getting the gearing long enough so that you got a good slipstream, but then you're kind of slower on the straight and get a slower lap time, or whether you are with shorter gears and so you get a better qualifying lap time, but it really does hamper you in the race if you're going to be battling in the midfield all the time. It's a very niche circuit, this one. You gotta be very aware about where you're going to be in the race, realistically.
Yeah, it really interested me anyway. Anything else to add, guys, on this race? Anyone else stood out for you? Anything else that I know he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit for us, but he's still kicking himself up there. But I mean, we have mentioned Lee Morris a bit before coming over fourth, but Lewis Redshaw as well. Somebody we haven't really mentioned much this year. He hasn't managed to get himself on the podium yet or anything, but he's still kicking around there. Always got fifth this time. And keeping up the pace with Morris as well.
I actually really enjoyed. I was watching it from Lee Morris's side of view, and I really enjoyed the Lee Morris and Lewis Redshaw. It wasn't really a battle too much for position, wheel to wheel stuff. There was a little bit there, but it was all down to strategy. And with that, Lewis Redshaw was degrading his tyres just a little bit too much. Arguably, he was a little bit faster, but was degrading it too much, and that cost him. But it was something interesting to watch, and just to see how much strategy can play an absolute key part in the race. When you have a race that's as long as this, and when people are pitting a couple of times, maybe 3 times, you've got to have that strategy absolutely right. You can be half a second a lap off of the pace, but still get yourself up into a good position if you have the right strategy and if you know how to work the car, and knowing that is an absolute key thing. And I think Lee Morris is showing that he can do that, but limitations of the car, driver, it doesn't matter. There was something that wasn't quite right there pace wise, and I think the overall thing to take away from the day's work was the Torrent are just so fast at the moment. They are incredibly quick in comparison to the rest of the field.
Yeah, I think it's just the same as we were saying last time out, isn't it, really? Torrent. Who's going to stop them, really, over the next 3 rounds? Can anyone? We'll have to wait and see, I suppose, won't we? So should we move on to the Super Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if we were to hold a competition every one of these reviews as to who had won or who would win the Super Cup race for the next week, I think we would be many millions of pounds in debt, unfortunately. I mean, there's no surprise, really, that Giuseppe Ranieri won once again from pole position once again. I got the fastest lap once again. But I would say that this was comprehensively the best race I have seen dominated by Giuseppe Ranieri, because Oscar Hardwick started on the prime tyres. We had a couple of others starting on the primes. I think Wixie was one of them. We had Mike Bell, who went to half distance on the red tyres. Then we had terrible tyre strategies, which turned into great tyre strategies, because for the last 8 laps or so, we had rain, and it got to the stage by the last couple of laps where it was genuinely wet tyre territory. And so it came to Ascari Kantonen to make the decision whether to pit or not on the final couple of laps. He pitted for wet tyres, got overtaken by Hardwick and De Vries, who were battling at the time. But because the weather was so wet, he managed to overtake them again. And I'll tell you what, the battle between Oscar Hardwick and De Vries, we were sort of wincing in the commentary box about how it was going to end, because of course there's history between the two. But I must say, one of the most entertaining battles to the line I have ever watched, trying to control the cars in the wet weather, and in the end Sven De Vries getting his first podium in Super Cup at his home race as well. Yeah, very exciting stuff actually, and it all worked out in the end for Mike Bell as well after his bad pit stop, forgetting to change the hard tyres, because he basically went red, wet, which arguably was the best strategy of the day.
Yeah, that bit of rain at the end really threw up some interesting dilemmas for the drivers. I think it's, do you pit, do you not? We saw some really, who have pitted before. We saw some people a bit out of sync with everyone else who took the first call. Even you're sitting there, Ranieri, going, well, he's that far in the lead, but the rain could make him spin off. We're just looking at that sort of thing, going, well, does he pit? Do you stay out? For certain people, like you say, Sven De Vries, and people that don't really have any championship ambitions, and it's only their third race in Super Cup, you look and go, well, it's worth a gamble for him. But then actually we saw the other way in Kantonen in his first race. He didn't take the gamble and tried to get the points.
Yeah, I mean, for what was arguably a fairly not boring race, because there was quite a lot of strategy in there that, obviously with Mike Bell going the red, which he was meant to go red-yellow, but just the it's amazing how a mistake really changed his good fortune for Mike Bell. But I think he's shown that he can really control those tyres. But I mean, for what was a race where there was, the odd overtake here and there, and then there was some good moves, there was some damn good moves and some really good driving, and then it calmed down a bit and everything spread out, and then we started seeing rain coming down. It was just like, oh, this is where it starts. This is where this race really begins, and it was phenomenally good for the last 8 laps were just incredible. We're not sure who's going to finish where, who's coming into the pits, who's doing what, where's doing what, and where, what, why. And it was just so good, and that's the kind of thing. That's why I like rain, because it really some drivers really like it if they do well in the rain and intermediate conditions. But for the commentators, I find it's really good fun because we have absolutely no idea what's happening.
Exactly. I mean, we see David Croft saying, "Unfortunately, we got rain." I say, "Brilliant, we got rain. That's excellent." I mean, unfortunately, the rain didn't really stop Ranieri from dominating necessarily. He dominated wet qualifying, but there's so much that can go wrong in wet weather, and that's what I love about it. Actually, to go quickly on to maybe disappointment in terms of drivers, Augustin Canapino made his debut at this race. The Argentine was really highly rated. There was a lot of buzz of activity before the race saying, "Oh, we've got to sign him." Target signed him up, and then I don't know, he just failed to impress. He looked great in free practice and just fell apart.
I still think he was pretty quick. I can't remember where he qualified, but
he was 5th.
He was 5th. So there you go. On debut, that's pretty high. In the race, though, there were some really simplistic mistakes. It looked like just missing braking zones and things like that. And I'm not sure what had happened. I mean, I don't think he was in the car for too long, really, beforehand. But
no, I mean, this is a guy who hasn't really had much time in these cars at all. I mean, I think he got the drive about 30 minutes before free practice or something like that, or even in free practice. It wasn't long, so do the guy justice. He got a lap out of there, but particularly with the rain, and he pulled the car home 13th, so he got some points, which, considering Target haven't scored many in the last few races, that's something for them.
Yeah, I'd give it to him. He's one to watch for the future. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go out and state that he was a disappointment. I wouldn't say that he impressed me though as much as everyone was rating him to be impressive, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I was expecting something a little bit more, but I mean, from what we had with the simplistic mistakes, you get that out of the way, and when heading to Abu Dhabi, and if he is still racing for target, then maybe then we've got a top 5 runner, or a quick runner, but at least then there'd be a little bit more practice than 30 minutes. But and I think we all know, from any sort of driving or team owning, that a lot of practice can give a lot of time, and 30 minutes practice sometimes just isn't enough. Sometimes you can get quite a bit out of the car in that period of time, but nowhere near as much as you would over a couple of weeks period, which we have now. So it's I think he'll be one to look out for.
I think he certainly will as well. I mean, as I say, he showed the pace certainly in free practice. And hopefully he will hopefully he will take some form of challenge to Giuseppe Redi. I mean, if we want to look at the tables now, Oscar Hardwick is still leading, but just by 2 points now is the gap. And unless something happens to Ranieri, or on the other side, if Hardwick doesn't find something in the setup to make himself go faster, that championship lead will most likely changing in Abu Dhabi. Ryan Walker still third, not competing. Pavel Oknovsky still fourth, not competing. And then we've got Morten Bernsen. Unfortunately, he had a retirement after a decent qualifying. He is still P5, as everyone else behind him sort of scored middle-ish points. But a shout out to Miko Sukas, who has broken his way into the top 10 on the same amount of points as Roy Schroten, but is ahead of him due to a higher finishing position of not only third, but he's had a second to his name. And so I think really good effort from Sukas to get himself inside the top 10 in a matter of 5 races. Really good effort.
Yeah,
that's a Super Cup star for the future, I think, is Miko Sukas. So he'll be one to really, really look out for, especially depending on where he's going to go next year. So Miko Sukas is going to be one that I'm definitely going to be looking at over the rest of this season. We haven't got very long left this season. We only got 3 races left. But where he goes in next season, that's going to be an interesting thing. Is he going to stay in Super Cup and challenge some of the people like Gagzella or whoever else is going to come up? Maybe your tappers and things like that. So it's going to be an interesting future for Miko Sukas, but he's really proving himself on the track that he can consistently bring himself in some points and move himself up the championship table.
I tell you, it's looking like a juicy Super Cup year for 2014 overall, doesn't it? I mean, we got, given that all of them have to go to Super Cup for next year, Sukas, Tapper, Kantonen, Scheller, Viduk, Tom Jacobs if he's on form. It's looking very good. Oh, Kenny Libert as well if he stays. Sven de Vries. So many potential names and all looking to be on similar pace. I can't wait for next year.
You mentioned some.
I did say Kantonen, I'm sure.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't. I was like looking at something else.
Sorry, actually, you mentioned briefly the Kenny Libert coming home 5th in this race. He particularly impressed me as well because he's only 3 races into his Super Cup career as well.
I don't know. We were sort of talking about in the race. We think he made an absolute awful tyre choice. I mean, he went red, didn't he? And he was going to need to make
that was really weird.
Like we couldn't tell whether his tyre wear was just extremely bad, or whether he just not changed onto the prime tyre. But it just seemed kind of pointless. To be honest, he should have just gone red, yellow, and where it was going. To be honest.
Yeah, but as a driver, I mean, we all know it from some sort of sim racing that we may have done, or as in Mike's case, team managing. But we all know that the driver is the person who knows most of the facts about the car they're driving. So that's given. So if the tyre wear was too high, Kenny is the person that knows it. Kenny is the person that's constantly monitoring whilst driving around. And don't get me wrong, going red it seemed a bit pointless, but maybe the yellows wouldn't have lasted as long as he wanted. So if he went red yellow, then he wouldn't have been able to have gotten up to. So maybe he could have gone red yellow red or whatever. But maybe that wouldn't have got him to the end of the race. And no one really knew that rain was on its way, so you couldn't really prepare strategy-wise for that. And it's a damn situation. Don't get me wrong. I don't understand the red, red, red. Maybe it was supposed to be red, red, yellow, but it was because it was around the same time that Mike Bell made the same mistake in strategy and didn't change tyres. But no, I'm not sure what happened to Lee Bear there. But the driver knows the most facts, and until we know everything, I think it's a bit unfair to completely judge. I still think red, red, red was a bit of a silly strategy, but I'm not 100% sure on the facts.
I mean, obviously, I can't disagree with you guys there, but I still think at the end of the day, he's brought home a 5th for FA Racing.
Yeah.
He's pulling them up the standings gradually now with his results of the last 3 races. So, I think if he stays around this sort of area next year, like you're saying, he's got a chance. Because obviously, he's not at the top end of the grid, but 5th is a good result for somebody. And at the end of the day, dragging the points home.
I tell you what, I mean, I have seen finally some big changes in the constructors. You've of course got CSG still up the front there, but in a vision, I mean, Scuderia Basilio is really starting to eat away at this gap now between Basilio and Innovision, and I think we could potentially be in a situation where second place could be decided at the last race in Brazil, which would be excellent. Malta Force is kind of on their own in 4th, but then we've got Satellite Racing back ahead of Target, and we were talking about Target as one of the constructors contenders at the start of the year, and they have just fallen away, and hopefully with Mike Bell and Augustin Canapino in the team, they should be able to get some consistent results in now. But Satellite have Sven de Vries. They now have a very, very competent replacement for Ryan Walker. They've ditched the ineffectual David Nichols as well, so maybe they're a team on the move. Vodbull, though, is actually really starting to catch up on these guys as well. They got to look in their rearview mirrors, because I know that Canton was just a reserve drive, but Russo looks fast. Morten Bernison always good on his day. So plenty of midfield table stuff still to decide. You got Street Fighter. They are definitely on their own. They're very much in no man's land on 140 points in 8th. Then the battle at the bottom of the table, PP Dynamic has really been brought back into this pull at the bottom, because FA Racing has jumped not 1 but 2 spots up to 10th. They're on the same points as B Racing, but have a higher position to their name. So they now inherit 10th in the constructors. PB are 11th on the same points. Fox Racing are 2 points behind. And you've got to watch out for Centurion as well. This is their second race in a row where both cars have scored points, and they've had at least one car in the top 10 both times. So teams that were previously having good success now starting to stutter, and those that sort of lost their way are now really starting to get a good charge on.
Yeah, for me, PP Dynamic is the one to be worried. They've only actually had one car turn up for the last few races, or in fact, no cars in Germany. These sort of things, it's just going to hamper that team heavily. Whereas, like you say, even though Centurion are well down, they've got 2 cars that are consistently there, consistently getting the points. And I think at that sort of level, if you can get that, you look at like FA Racing, like I said, with Kenny bringing in the points, they've dragged themselves up. You need one driver to do, especially down there, one driver to get 1 or 2 decent results within the top 5 or 6, and you jump huge amounts.
It's a shame for PBD as well, because they were looking like they're on a real up, but Pestov's just has not been there. Herm's retirement, non-attendance, 17th, and yeah, for that team. I think Fox Racing is, looking at the bottom now, I'd say Fox Racing is most likely going to end up on bottom with the way Centurion's going. EB, I think, will probably be safe from Centurion, but yeah, PBD need to get a move on, and Sharpish as well, especially with 3 rounds to go. They don't want to get swamped.
I think the huge disappointment from the whole thing there is Target, actually. When you think they're on 190 points, but actually they've really only had one driver properly for the full season, one way or the other. Bar the first 4 or 5 races.
Not even that. I mean, the Parlour left ages ago. Then it was Grimseth. He's disappeared off the map. Nobody knows where he's gone, and I mean, that's a fall from grace if ever I've seen one. A win to his name. And then
Target has got 2 wins at the end of the day, and it's sitting down there in 5th. It's man, and a few podiums for that matter. It's just...
Actually, no, they're in sixth.
Sixth, sorry, yes, Satellite. Sorry, my apologies. Yes.
See, the thing is with Target is that they've not had consistent drivers, and what I mean by that is that I don't mean that their drivers haven't been consistent. What I mean by that is that they haven't appeared to many races with the same two drivers. Be honest, it's who's Target going to turn up with this week? We really don't know.
Or will they turn up?
Hopefully, the two drivers they have now, consistent lineup. Hopefully, but it's a bit silly for a team that has had the success that they've had, which 2 wins, 5 podiums, and not a stable team. It seems a bit really just silly, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we were talking about.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, we were talking about being title contenders at the start of the year. The driver line that they posted and the start of the season they had, and to fall so far is sad, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got something different now. They got Mike Bell, always looking for the alternate strategy. Augustine Canapino, who we must remind the viewers is a real-life racing driver. That should not be dismissed. And Target seem to have a knack for getting these real-life racing drivers, certainly because they have Wyatt Gooden come in for one race, and it's a shame that he hasn't turned up more often. But yeah, hopefully they've got a consistent lineup now, and if they've got a consistent lineup, then they can seriously think about challenging the likes of Satellite, Multiforce again without too much trouble from Vodball. But yeah, it all depends on that, really. 3 races to go, a lot can still happen.
Right, so I suppose we best move on to Formula Challenge? ?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Right. So for qualifying, off the top of my head, because I can't see what the results are or anything from qualifying, I believe Gaxella took pole, but then he had a 5-place grid penalty. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Simoncic was on pole, which meant that the race one was Gaxella actually took a win for the first time in quite a while. I can't remember how long it was. I think it's since Italy.
Italy, yeah.
Italy was the last time he took a win. So quite a while, really, for Gaxella. But so he took a win. Good stuff from him, which helps him in the championship. Then you had Simoncic, Johnson, good stuff to get a podium for him. Fidek, McNaughton, Gaia, Niemanen in 7th, Tapper down in 8th position. Then you had Palm 9th, Cantonen 10th, Joseph 11th, Jacobs 12th, Brewster is in 13th, and then Richards in 14th, and Butcher in 15th. Interesting racing. It's really good to see that Gax Elliott still has the pace. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate for the championship because I mean we've been talking a while ago that this could be a really good one, but in Germany, I kind of think that it was showing that Gaxella definitely hasn't lost it, and he's definitely got the pace. He's had the podium for the last 4 races. I distinctly remember, not too long ago, he was. I mean, look, in Italy, he took a win and then a 7th, and in Belgium, it was a 12th and a 2nd, and then in France, it was a 2nd and a retirement. But from then on, he's been consistently on the podium and finishing up there and getting the points that he needs. And Fidek finishing down in 4th. Yeah, it's not looking good for the championship, but it's good to see that Gaxella still has it.
I worry, though, because Fidek came out of that race evening fuming, and the first thing he said on Skype afterwards, he posted a little status to vent his rage, and he said it's something along the lines of, "It's unbelievable. The only time I can get beaten is when I'm hit out." And I believe that there was further contact between Gaxella and Fidek, and this has sort of been stemming throughout the championship. We know Gaxella is not the cleanest of drivers. He's very aggressive. Aggression can take him to some places. But I think Fidek has lost all motivation to even take part in this, and I would be, well, let's put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't turn up to Abu Dhabi, not in the slightest, because he just doesn't want to do it anymore.
I think, I mean, he's not, I know him a little bit, I don't think he's going to be the type of guy to not turn up. I mean, ultimately, we're still looking at a vaguely open Constructors title, which he can pull in, and I think if you didn't have him there, that would just, Storm inherit it. So I don't think he'd give up on it like that. But yeah, he was obviously very angry after this after this race, it wasn't just about Gagzello, it was about a couple of other drivers and McNaughton and a few others that being. I can understand it being frustrating, and obviously we should say actually we don't know any outcomes of any penalties or anything, if there is any. We don't know anything of that yet. I presume David will be hoping there is some. It'd be about the only way the championship's still got something alive, I'd guess.
I think the penalties was one of the things which sort of, ticked him off before even the race, because the word around the paddock was that Garcia had basically received no less than 5 penalty complaints from last race, or incidents reports, and then he only got a 5th place. It's very, very bizarre. Unless they were all for the same incident, it's very bizarre to see.
We should say that people put these complaints in, but they don't necessarily stand up. It's only,
yes, exactly.
Out of those, only one of them might have counted as something that is an infringement on the rules.
It's just a bizarre situation to see when you hear supposedly all these potential penalty claims, and then I think Fider disappointed going into annoyance that didn't pay out for him more, because I think he was expecting Gisela to be a bit further back than, was it P6 in the end?
I kind of think that if Fider doesn't show up to Abu Dhabi, I think that's a bit unfair to his team. If I'm brutally honest, because I mean, even if he's out of the drivers, they still have the team's championship to play for, and if Gagzella's getting back on form, then that's something to really look out for. You need to consistently keep that points margin, and I think if Fider goes, do you know what? I'm just too stressed out and I don't want to show. I mean, he's got to do what's best for himself, but if he doesn't show up, then I still think that's just a bit unfair to his team.
I'd still be putting money on him turning up next race. That would be my.
Yeah, I would as well.
I think it's he was annoyed at the time, and I think we've seen that from some drivers quite a lot over the season. But most of them do turn up the next race. Ultimately, they're here for a reason, aren't they? And it's it is a team effort.
Yeah. Well, Fidek, it just kind of got a little bit worse in race 2. But Darai Tepa took his first win since Belgium, where I don't know if he's been off of form really, but he's never been able to kind of put it up there, having a few mistakes in the race. But finally taking a win again in race 2, followed by Niemanen. And Gagzella once again putting himself on the podium position. You have Geyer in 4th, De Vries in 5th, Canton in 6th. But I reckon that's debatable. We were discussing this through the race because he did pretty much the entire race from the first lap onwards without a rear wing, which that can actually gain a slight speed advantage down the straight, and by slight I mean huge. So I think that's up for debate when the penalties come out. But then in 7th place was Fidek. Butcher did a good job to put it up into 8th. I think it's his debut round, so good stuff from him. Then you had Johnson in 9th, Beresford in 10th. Warren was in 11th, and Warren is Fidek's teammate. Tom Jacobs, 2nd, 12th in a row. Martin Palm in 13th, Joseph in 14th, and then Lopez in 15th. So Fidek, once again, not really in the greatest position, but I still think he may get a 6th from that, because I'm not sure what's going to happen to Cannon. Because I mean, the rule was introduced in Italy that if you are missing a front or rear wing, then you have to pit. Within 3 laps. But this is what I brought up. That was only for Italy. Now, on a track like Indianapolis, there is still a lot of time that can be gained from not having a rear wing because of that straight. So I think that's debatable. I'm not sure if a penalty should come across from it, because that was only for Italy, and we weren't warned whilst in the pits, or whilst before the race. We weren't told in the chat or anything, you have to pit within 3 laps if you've had damage to the car with front and rear wing. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I think the regulations for that need a little bit of clearing up, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I'd imagine there probably won't be a penalty, but we probably will get a bit of clarification on some regulations from this, I'd hope.
Yeah.
Somebody we didn't particularly mention there, but was picked up twice, was James Johnson. Thought being his debut in FC, coming 3rd and 9th. was a decent return, bringing 23 points to Zurich. It was a decent, notable drives.
Yeah, he did a really good job to get it on the podium in the first race, and then to consistently bring it home for another points position in the second. It was good stuff, and showing that he's a potential good driver for the future of Formula Challenge, depending on where he wants to really go. But we'll just have to patiently wait and see where he's gonna decide to turn up. But yes, it was a good debut, really. Good showing for James.
And are we surprised by Cantonen? Coming off the back of 3 race wins to come 10th and 6th?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by that. I thought he was going to be considerably faster than he was. Especially considering, for the last load of races, he's looked like an outstandingly dominating driver. He's had a good couple of pole positions from what I remember. He definitely had one in Spa, but then had the reverse grid pole as well, which doesn't technically count in my books. But yes, all right, then I got a pole position.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really count that as an actual, as you've gained a pole position. You've just finished in a spot that was randomly picked.
Right,
but
yeah.
Nevertheless, he won that race, and he's gone on to win 4 races, finished on the podium 6 times, and then just kind of got a 10th and a 6th. Which arguably in the second race he did get the rear wing taken off quite early on. So we don't really know where he would have finished had he remained with a rear wing for the race. So I think it's debatable what's going to happen to Cantonen, but I'm just going to flick through the championship tables, and so we can get on with this. And Gagzella still leading on 461 points. So he's got quite a big lead over Fidek, who's on 345. So that's a good strong lead for Gagzella, especially considering we've only got 6 races left in the last 3 rounds. Tapper taking another win, promotes himself up into 3rd in the championship now, 208 points, 1 point in front of Thomas Jacobs, who sat in 3rd position for quite a while now. Then below that, you've got Ari Nieminen in 5th position, 197 points, 30 points clear of Pedro Malim, who is 11 points clear of Matt Klipp, and then 6 points clear of Oskari Cantonen, who didn't have the best of rounds in the United States. Then it's Adrian McNaughton in 9th position with 148 points, and Paul Joseph in 10th with 132, which that will take us on. I'm just going to flick through the top 5 of the constructors because I'm really lazy. So you've got Simic who lead on 646 points. Not a huge gap though to second place team which is Storm Racing on 609. This is why we say Fidek not appearing, probably a bit unfair to the team, especially considering that gap is not comfortable. And then it's almost 300 points back to Karjala in 3rd position on 317 points. Obviously they took a podium out last time with Nieminen. So it's a good showing for Karjala in 370 points. That's a good load of points. Then they've got Adonis Engineering behind, which is Cantonen's team, who are looking increasingly scary. 292 points, so not too far for that position. They are in front of Royal Blue, who have 290 points currently. So I kind of think Adonis Engineering are going to get away from Royal Blue, but Royal Blue have to look behind to Tanskanen, who are on 278 points, and Tanskanen obviously with Tapper in the team. That's a team to really look out for that's going to be moving up. But Adonis Engineering moving up quite a few positions, so good stuff from them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if they can get a second driver that scores regularly as well, between them they could jump ahead of Karjala. When the amount of wins they've had off Cantonen, it would be deservedly so as well.
Yeah, agreed.
I must say, Royal Blue, though, are good to be there. I mean, they've been consistently solid throughout the whole season. They're not one of these teams that's turned out with one driver. They've had 2 drivers nearly every race. They have got a podium to the name. They're just consistent and scored those points.
Yeah, and fun fact, they've only there's only been 2 races this season, considering how many races they've had, about 30 races, I think, this season. And there's only been 2 occasions where they haven't scored points in a race. So, that's been some nice consistency from them that's put them up into that position. They've not taken a win, but they've had a couple of podiums to their name. So, I think it's been a good showing this year for Royal Blue, and showing that consistency, which I don't think there's many other teams with that level of consistency.
No, definitely, it's definitely worth noting because I mean, you get some of these teams at the top there because they've got, we can look at Enders with Canton winning races. You look at Tascam with Tapper winning races. They're up there for that sort of reason, really. But Royal Blue's a decent team effort, and I like that.
Sort of like the team everybody likes in Formula Challenge. They don't really get into too much trouble, do they? They knuckle down and get on with it. And I think in Matt Clip and Paul Joseph, they have two very likeable, clean drivers, and I'm happy to see them up there. To be honest, I'm not sure whether they're looking to move up into Super Cup next year or whether they're going to just stick around in Formula Challenge. But if I were them, looking at it from a team manager's point of view, I would definitely think about sticking around in Formula Challenge next year because you see some of the teams with these starlet moving up into Super Cup. I think there's a good chance at Drogter's glory for Royal Blue next year if they get their cards right.
That's a good shout. I mean, if they pick out the right drivers and things like that, then that could be a good shout. And also from something that I've just read in the forums, which is absolutely correct, is that going into Abu Dhabi, if we leave Abu Dhabi, Fidek needs to outscore Gagzella by 16 points to stay in the championship. Actually, it'd have to be more than that. It'd have to be 17 points because of wins and complicated other things. So it'd have to be 17 points that Fidek has to outscore Gagzella in Abu Dhabi, which, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how likely that is. But, when we started this show, and when I did that first race with commentary back in Korea, it was just looking like Gagzella was going to take it far earlier than he had or than he can. I thought it was going to be around like Belgium time. He's just going to like sort it out and then go away and do something else. But to say it's been alive up until possibly the penultimate round of the season, that's quite impressive. Really, it shows some serious skill from Fidek. Maybe a bit of luck sometimes, but some skill to have put it on the podium consistently and having a good couple of off rounds. But it's a good showing for Fidek, really.
Yeah, I mean, you have got to remember that Fidek didn't start into Austria, so that the head start effectively that the Gagzella had was like he already had 3 podiums to his name by that point, 2 race wins. So he's trying to. It's that really that's probably cost him really not being here from the very start of the season.
Yeah, which is it's a shame, but I think that's quite an incredible statistic that. That out of the amount of wins that Gagzella's had, Fidek's still there, and I like that. I like that. That shows consistency. I like a good consistent driver. Maybe not the fastest on the grid, but one that rookies can look at and go, that's a good driver. That's a good consistent driver, and that's where the points are. That's where you get the championship. So I think it's a really good showing.
I mean, I'd question that. I thought he is one of the fastest on the grid. I mean, we've seen some of the stuff, some of his lower scores. He's been unlucky and been hit, or he's been, some of his qualifying pace has been amazing. Obviously, Gagzella is equally as fast, but it's just, I wouldn't have put him down like we were saying about Royal Blue. I wouldn't have put him down as one of the consistent. I mean, he's consistent, but he's consistently fast. Anyone disagree?
No.
I don't know.
You went silent on me.
I still don't think he's the fastest. He's definitely one of the fastest. Then you've got like Gagzella's, Tappers, Cantonans, who are like freakishly quick. Not that Fidek isn't. I mean, he's freakishly quick. I remember, just like looking at the times that he's done in a race, he's just kind of like, nope, I can't get near that. Sorry. And that's just the way it is. But yeah, he's had an incredible level of consistency that's really put him up there, and it's something to look at, and especially when moving into the future and possible moving up into Super League or Super Cup, then that's something that I think a team will want. You want a good, consistent driver, especially if they are equally quick, which it shows that Fidek is. He's maybe not the fastest, but he's the most consistent, and when you get things like strategy involved, then that can really be an advantage to be consistent. So then strategy will play a key part of it. Obviously, we don't really have strategy in Formula Challenge, but that can be a key part. So So yeah, that was Formula Challenge.
I think it was a great round altogether with the whole Indy thing. If you had to pick a driver, guys, out of the whole 3 series, it was your driver of the week, because we haven't done this for a few weeks now, so let's do a driver of the week. I'll put you on the spot. Who would you have gone for? Who do you reckon is faultless almost?
James can go first.
Thanks.
That was very honourable of you.
Yeah.
Kantonen, second in Super Cup, very impressive. Made his stop for wet tyres work just about. And personally, I think driving around Indianapolis for the majority of the race without a rear wing and still finishing inside the top 10 is a madman's assignment, but he still managed to do it. So for me, it's going to be Kantonen.
That is a madman's assignment. But I kind of agree. I think James Johnson on debut getting a podium, that's a good shout. That's showing some decent pace. But I mean, Carter really shows that he's got some serious pace in Super League, and arguably should have won that race, and was faultless throughout, other than maybe a couple of things that went a little bit wrong. So I'm actually going to lean the way of Carter. I think he should have won that race, absolutely, and shows that he does have the pace. But he's definitely going to be one to look forward to when it comes to races. I out of the last 3 races, if one of them is the right kind of track for him, I think he'll definitely take the win. But there's only 3 rounds left, and there isn't a track that's exactly like Indianapolis. So we'll have to keep an eye on Carter. But I think he was quite impressive in the Super League.
You see, Lewis, I'd gone the opposite, and I actually think Paresis was my driver of the week, in that he showed that winning's instinct, that he was going to win this race. He's won the last couple as well, so I just think he was up there with Casa for the speed and everything, but he just had that little edge that got him the win. Granted, it may have only been by tenths, but that's a win's a win, isn't it? And it can win you championships overall. Maybe not this season, but looking into next year.
Since you two are so intent on focusing on the Super League drivers, how about this for a question? Do we think that we will have, by the end of the season,
a single
winner? Because if you think about it, we only have one more chance for it to be legitimate, and that's if someone wins
Japan.
Yeah, well, actually, no, we've got 2 more chances. It's be or Japan, and then someone else has to win, because by the end of the season, there's not going to be another race to properly categorise.
We will end up with a
I
single
think
winner.
we'll
I think
end up with a
Casa might
single
end up
winner,
with
and that'll be in
one,
Brazil.
Well, we can't have one in Brazil, as I said. That's the end of the
that's
season.
why I say I think we're going to have a single winner in Brazil. Someone who wins Brazil, who's separate, who hasn't won
in a while
as part of a chain.
I think it might not be long before we see Lee Morris at the top there.
I don't think that car's fast enough. I mean, there's problems with that car with its top speed and things like that, and
I think if you were Peter Gasson, you'd be disappointed as well.
It's kind of hard to say whether he'll be up there this season, but I think next season, if he does return, that'll be something to look out for. Especially if he changes team or stays with the current team, then that's definitely going to be something to look out for.
Well, thank you very much, lads. That's our our 50-minute now review of the Indianapolis GP for GPVWC. Hope you'll all join us this following Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday for our Formula Challenge, Super Cup and Super League respectively. We're heading off to Abu Dhabi from the comfort of our seats, of course, but we are heading to Abu Dhabi. I hope you'll all join us there, and it's a thank you from me, Michael Pittman. I thank James Kirk and Lewis McGlade for joining me once again, and we hope to see you all next time.